And welcome, everyone. It is July 1st, the official halfway point of 2025. We are here live speaking about some stuff and some things. And I am joined here by my co host, Brian. Brian, you're just telling me you're feeling good today. What's up with.
I just did some coke. No, I didn't do cocaine. My boy Dave is drinking some look like Coke Zero though, so we do have coke on this podcast either way. But yeah, man, I'm in a good mood. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I just got finished up. I had some cucumbers that I'm starting to harvest. There's going to be a pickle apocalypse here soon
Pickle
because,
apocalypse. Say that
yeah,
10 times fast.
I got so many of them, but I'm doing between fermenting and regular canning methods. And yeah, so I mean, it's been fun. My fingers stink like garlic. Just got back
Yep.
from Kroger. I'm going to have to go buy pretty much all the mason jars in the local Westland area. But yeah, it feels good. Gardening, sense of accomplishment. I was talking to my therapist earlier today, and I
Uh
think we talked a little bit last night too about the things that you can do that are healthy, that are measurable. So with gardening, depending on what your harvest is like, how your plants look, that can make you feel good that you've succeeded in being able to garden or going to the gym and some weight comes off the scale if you're dieting or you're able to put more weight up or able to run longer or faster or whatever. So really just trying to fold that in every day, and it kind of helps to break things up when I'm working from home to get up for 5 minutes, go check on the plants, see my war against the cucumber beetles, and yeah, just yeah, keep an eye on that stuff. And then there's obviously the more abstract things that we deal with, as far as internal motivation, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about what we accomplished that day. And yeah, I mean, I think it kind of just comes down to more work, but really journaling or setting out a plan for what you wanted to accomplish that day and seeing what you were able to do. So just kind of planning on that. I'm going full Larry David mode with a little pocket handbook that I'll be writing in and looking at, um, and we'll see how that goes.
Hell yeah. With your gardening, you get to measure your cucumbers and spread your seed, man. You do it. You're doing God's work, and I love it.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, measurable goals. That's like what our episode is about today. So I have plateaued a little bit on my diet, but I'm not beating myself up. Um, I've noticed myself that I've been kind of eating tortilla chips and like that never really stopped, but like, I've just been kind of like gourding. So plateaued that my hunger's come back a little bit. So I'm kind of adjusting and adding more protein to my diet, right? So, you know, I was pretty sad that I've kind of been in and out the last few weeks, but sometimes it just takes a little spark and a little motivation. Sometimes you just need to take a step back and be like, whoa, like, what am I doing right now, man? It's not good.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's a little, it's a little simplistic, but, you know, overall, I took a step back and I said, I'm a chunky little, I'm a chunky little boy. Like I don't want to be like that anymore. I want to get gains. I want to look like Eric and like, and not me. So, and that's a put down. I shouldn't do that, but, um, I want to be in great shape. I have been going to the gym.
nice.
It's nothing special. Like, I kind of just get on a treadmill and watch TV for a little bit. But you know what? Hey, like, I'm doing it. Like, it sounds stupid. And I'm sure there are bros listening out there, and they're like, he's got to work on his X, Y, and Z. I'm not there yet. I'm not there for motivation yet. But baby steps.
Yeah,
Treadmill.
yeah. No, I talk about it all the time. You got to find something that works and taking those steps and building that base. Legs feed the wolf. A strong base, strong legs, the wolves get fed.
I ain't the wolf. Okay, I am a wolf.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, sometimes maybe looking at yourself and realizing you're not where you want to be and hoping that's the motivation for where you do want to be. But if you can also fold in what it takes. So I think for me, I have that all or nothing mentality. I can either do it all or I can't do it at all. And yeah, breaking down those steps and getting more of an understanding of what does it take to get to the gym? What does it take to be able to do what I want to do at the gym? What does it take to stick to my diet? What works best? And sometimes it's a lot of give and take. And there's going to be those times. I think it's probably one of the more important times when you fall off. How long does it take you to get back up? How long does it take you to realize I fell out of it because of X? I'm not going because of Y. And now I need to figure out Z to get me back up and motivated because, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I found is, I'm pretty motivated to do things that are easy and measurable or do things for other people and be there for them. But I don't treat myself the way that I would treat a good friend. I don't speak to myself in a very positive way. I mean, I'm not down on myself all the time, but a lot of the times that fleeting, shameful feeling that might be able to get you up off the couch, might be able to get you to eat healthier, but establishing more of that relationship to, how would a good friend talk to me about this, about how I'm feeling, what I'm doing, and uh, realizing like, well, you're doing a lot better than you were before. And sometimes it's hard to look at ourselves internally or really have that love for ourselves to give ourselves grace. And I think it's kind of up to, your own determination. I plan to do these things today and I did most of them. That's good. Some days, if you don't plan anything and you don't do anything, I think that's kind of an easy way to avoid kind of the goals and the things you set out for yourself. But for other people, if you start off and you just kind of realize you got to learn by doing. And as you continue to learn, I love learning. That's why I try different things. I try different exercises, look at studies, what works best. Gardening has been quite a big experiment. There's a lot of things I didn't realize that I would have to manage and look out for. But, you just got to keep going and um, just, yeah, keep going, keep learning, not only about what you're doing, but how you're doing it and how it makes you feel.
Yeah, it's all about building a strong foundation. You don't want to build a house on quicksand, right? I think this is the old term for that. So, yeah, for me, I mean, even though I've been a chunky little boy lately, I still have the understanding because I have an app, and like that sounds dumb too, but like that's been holding me accountable. And I noticed that like when I don't track things is when I really go off track. Add a little pun there. Um, because it's not holding myself accountable. Same thing for me at work. There's times where I'm like just doing like an Excel sheet and I just want to like throw myself into traffic. But like, I know that I have to do that. I know I have to get that work completed. Um, and sometimes, yeah, I'll slack off, but I got to tell myself like this, so no one else is here to do this. Like, you're here to do this. Like, you have to do that. And so I am trying to keep that mentality as like my base of like, no one's going to pick up the shirt on the floor. No one's going to pick up no one's going to clean the plates. Like, my wife and son are out of town right now. So I'm going to have to be a little bit more dependent on myself to like get household chores done. Cause this, this carpet's not going to get wrung out. Like, these laundry is not going to get thrown into the washer. Like, there's things that have to be done on a daily basis, number one. Um, but number two, um, you having a strong base of just it depends on your situation, right? Like I was over the weekend, I literally did nothing. Like I sat on the couch and munched, and those were the days that I wasn't tracking. That's when my base wasn't good. But now that I've kind of have seen what I had done for 2 days, and just like kind of get completely got out of sync, um, I didn't like that, so I had to like kind of recalibrate and be like, okay, like you had a bad couple days, but like now it's time to get back to normal. We're we're gonna be at work, so we're gonna be around other people. We're gonna be a bit more social, and then it's just gonna be like our batteries are going to kind of recharge themselves, so to speak. So getting back into that routine, um, and the swing of things, sometimes it might take a minute, and sometimes it might be even slower than that. But it's just being consistent and having a strong foundation of accountability for yourself.
Yeah, that's the that's the wrench that got thrown, right? Your wife leaves town, you got no one around in the house, and you got to keep yourself from going full goblin mode. I mean, going around walk, you better have pants on. You better not be winning the pooing it right now on me. But
I,
uh,
I was this weekend, but I have pants on. I got back to society.
yeah, once the work came back around, and then you had to come out from your cave.
Yeah. I had to remove all the jelly stains and put some slacks on.
Mhm. Like, yeah, I get it. It's tough, especially when I think it's easy enough to realize there's things you want to work on, and for however long it's gone one way negatively, and then you want to move towards something that's positive. But I think if I can take all this on at once, it's not going to be able. I'm not going to be able to keep up with it for forever, or I'm not going to see results right away. But I'll see those results in the future if I want to be more motivated for the gym or diet or cleanliness or sleep schedule, or there's this book series that I haven't really got through, and all these other things. But I think just the amount of choices that you can make every day, it's hard to stay true to what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. So yeah, it's a lot easier to think about where you want to be, why the things that you're doing that are negative, instead of taking a step back and thinking, okay, well, let's work on this first. Let's develop this as a habit. I had kind of a disgusting habit, but I chewed my nails up until I was like 25 years old. And
That
eventually,
was the age that I quit too. Funny enough.
yeah, I still pee the bed. I don't know what to do about that, but
Well, I pooped the bed, so we're in the
yeah,
same company.
well, it's not a competition. Anyways, I don't, and sometimes I look back and think it's hard to think about why I broke that bad habit or how I've been able to maintain it all this time. But the only thing that I have to do is do something else and kind of come to that realization. Gardening's easy enough because there's times that I finish something at work or send an email and I have time between a meeting that I can get up and, just go outside, take a break from the mundane and what you're doing. But, some of these other things, like, yeah, getting up and getting to the gym is hard. Some days it's going to be harder than it usually is. And I think those tests and when we fall off and everything else, like how long it takes you to get back up, what you had to deal with, and then you continue doing it. And I think it just kind of comes down to, yeah, if there's no structure like there was when I had sports, when I had school, when we had the boot camp, where you have, or even with work, where you have to get these things done, or you have to learn these new things, or you have to practice, or however, you have to kind of police yourself into doing that. And yeah, it might take a little bit more work, but at the end of the day, it's 5 minutes of your time just to think about things from a high level. All right, at 7 p.m., I'm going to go to the gym. I'll be there for an hour and a half, get home, um, maybe cook food, or maybe you schedule out time to meal prep or something. And you're going to come home and eat that, and maybe wind down before bed by watching a TV show or reading a book. And then before you go to bed, you think about what you have to get done the next day and things that you want to get done at work and the priorities on what those things are, and to say, okay, well, I'm going to bring a lunch to work tomorrow, or say, one of these days, one day out of the week, you eat out or something, or I'm going to go for a walk at lunch, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. I mean, the so many options that you have. So just trying to figure out small things to fold in every day that are healthier than what you were before. And you just got to build off that. It's kind of the same thing with long term investments will net you a lot more money than it will options trading or trying to gamble or sports betting or anything like that, because that's when you get yourself into trouble. But staying the course and being patient, and patience pays, is one of the better phrases that I've heard recently. And it's true. The patience and the persistence to do something, but that persistence means that you're going to continue doing it, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be all at once. And you just, make those decisions and keep it small.
Yeah, you said something very interesting earlier. It kind of sparked things that we've obviously talked about, but you said, taking it all on at once. It wasn't necessarily in that context, obviously, but um, I used to. I mean, I still am in some regards, but I used to be like all or nothing. Like I had to take it all on, or I can't do like anything. But like, kind of like working with my wife in a kitchen, like trying to do all of that by yourself is you're gonna kill yourself eventually, just from pure exhaustion. And I think I was definitely like that up until a couple of years ago. I find myself just kind of, or I was finding myself just, if I couldn't do everything that I wanted to, like the lone wolf mentality, then it wasn't good enough for me, and I wouldn't do it. So I had to teach myself, and I definitely had to learn that even a small piece of, whether it's cutting up fruit or chopping in an onion or just taking out the trash, like you're part of a team. And that definitely comes into effect even with your own brain, that if you break up everything into small components, then everything else is, you know, less overwhelming. Like you with gardening and learning, it's not necessarily just putting soil in, bulbs or plant or like seeds in. Like there's a lot more to it to that. You have to you have to have topsoil. Obviously you have to have the right amount of water and sunlight. Like you can't just put a garden anywhere. You have to, and there's a whole different science behind it, but it's baby steps, it's increments.
Yeah,
And
that's go ahead.
I was gonna say that's just like, I mean, we've talked about this 1,000 times on, or probably not that many, but we've talked about a lot of just like breaking things down, and like you said, like writing things down or staying organized too, right? But like this all kind of just goes back to like my point of when you have a strong base like that, nothing seems impossible. So, you know, I think going forward, I've obviously learned that like I've learned to make like a Mexicali dip instead of using sour cream. I use Greek yogurt. It's going to be a bit more tangier, but it's way less calories. Um, and substitute this for that. Like it's just like the little things that add up at the end of the day that's going to make you feel a lot better. And I mean, this mentality can be applied to anything: the gym, gardening, work, um, just in life, and over communicating. I mean, even if it's to yourself, like I have a pretty overactive brain, so I feel like I talk to myself a lot and possibly overthink things. But and I feel like I have to understand every scenario that could possibly happen for me to make a relevant decision. But I'm getting to the point where I'm talking myself down, and I can kind of just like singularly focus on the pros and cons of a situation faster rather than have to go through like the whole spectrum of the sinking process. And it's just building my brain so it's in a healthier place, so my highs aren't always as high and my lows aren't high, where I'm kind of just like a middle wavelength type deal. So um yeah, I mean, I feel better, if I were like on keto and I was just started, or my when I was losing weight a while ago, doing keto, and I, just all of a sudden started snacking on chips, then yeah, I'd probably would beat myself up. But now I'm like, I had a good time, sat on the couch, like, let's get back to it, like it was fun. This couple of days were fun, but now I get back to reality and put pants on, put the chips away, and big dog got to do big dog things. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, exactly. I think it's I'm just, at least for myself, I'm just stubborn. And it's very weird.
I think we all are in our own way.
Yeah, well, it's really weird to have the stubbornness of thinking that I can take things on. I can take on more than is needed, but I usually, get into these phases of, with gardening or house projects or the gym, that takes up like a lot of my mental space. So with gardening, I'm constantly looking, constantly worried. Do these leaves look good? Are they growing as fast as they need to be? What can I do to help these plants out? Are they getting enough sunlight? What's the watering schedule? And in that sense, it works out. With house projects, it works out because you look at all the possible different variables that you can think of. If a wall is not even before you put mortar on it for backsplash, what do you do to keep it level? What do you do to make it look the same? Do you even it out with the mortar? Like, what do you do with molding? Um, like, how do you get everything to look more uniform? And that. So sometimes it does work out in that sense, and other times, say with golf, when I was getting golf lessons, and I'd be up there for 30 minutes to an hour, and they would only be making me focus on one thing, and they would go through and make sure I did that one thing right, regardless of how I struck the ball, because a lot of times I wasn't striking the ball really great. And they're like, well, don't worry about that. But it was something that made me worry about it because I wasn't hitting it well. And they're telling me to do something and it doesn't feel right and it feels weird. And um, same thing with when I went and did acupuncture. And I felt like they're just trying to sell me on more lessons, or they're trying to sell me on getting more treatments, or these other things. So I think there's like that difference between, work. It's easy enough to know you have to get up at a certain time, you have to show up, you have meetings, you have things that you have to report on, you have projects, and you have your own learning. How can I do things to make things easier on myself, easier on other people? What can I do to help the company out or the team out? And with house projects or gardening, eventually there's going to be a time where you don't have to do anything, or the project's completed, or the summer's over, everything's canned, everything's pickled, everything is, done in that sense from the gardening perspective. Whereas going to the gym or eating healthy or cleaning up around the house is something that you have to do. You have to fold that in every day, every week. Same thing with mowing the lawn, doing laundry, and those things. So it's kind of like that. That's the difference that I get into. And I'm trying to kind of look through the fog and try to understand these things. Because, yeah, if you, old saying in poker, think long, think wrong. So if I can get to just like my first instinct of what can I do to make things better in any sense. Okay, I want to go to the gym. Let's start at once a week. Like, let's just go. And that should be full stop. That's what you start with. Or eating healthier. Okay, one meal a day, I'll track, and it'll be healthy in a sense, or healthier than I usually. Okay, full stop, start there, and then we'll build up to more other things. But there's a lot of variables that happen in between that But I think that's where I've been trying to go to therapy and trying to get a more understanding of how do I feel good about myself doing it. Because with gardening, if you're off on pH in the soil, if you're off on sunlight, if you're off on water, the plant won't thrive. Whereas me, I'm not thriving, but if I wanted to just sit in bed all day or just watch TV all day and eat like crap and never work out or anything, like I would still
Whoa, 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 whoa!
survive.
Take it easy there, pal.
Well, what I'm saying is that,
No, no, I'm joking.
yeah, there's certain things that with gardening that you have to do to make sure the plants thrive. Whereas, our basic needs of food, water, sleep is really all you need to survive, but you're not exactly thriving. And it's hard to kind of look at that and feel that without getting that interpersonal love, that interpersonal feeling that I can do better and not, so much of the negatives that kind of come along with like, oh, you said you were going to go to the gym today, but you didn't. You said you were going to do laundry, but you didn't, and full stop there and be like, it's okay. I'll go tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll handle it tomorrow. Instead of, doing things because I feel like it needs to be done or something, or somebody's going to come after me if it doesn't get done.
um, yeah, I mean, definitely trying to love yourself and just have like loving yourself is hard. Sometimes loving other people is easier than loving yourself because it gives you something else to focus on rather than like the loud kind of chaotic brain that you have. Um, but like, yeah, I mean, you have to give yourself grace in situations. Um, if you're not, if your garden's not coming along how you want it to, if your diet's not coming along, that shit sucks at the end of the day. But like, it's not a big deal. I mean, there are people who, the chances of you kind of just like if you're obese and you take a day off to eat in your dieting and you take a day off, like it's not going to be a big deal if you munch down on some things, but like that can't be a consistent thing because then that's like one, you're not respecting yourself enough to quit and do the harder thing. You're just going for the easy, the low hanging fruit. And two, it's like not part of like your routine, and you're not loving yourself at that point. You're just trying to manage a situational stress. I'm speaking from personal experience here. Like you're just managing a situational stress um, that's going to have long term negative effects. So if you don't deal with it the correct way, so that's why I kind of like have spent a lot of time especially the last year of just like, and it's hard. Like don't get me wrong, it's not an easy process of just being able to love myself so that I can love other people, and also just respecting myself enough to know what I want and what I need in every kind of given scenario. So, um, man, it's hard. Don't get me wrong, but it's something you have to work at. Just like everything else in life, gardening, going to the gym, finding your right diet, everything else is the things that you want in life aren't shouldn't be easy. You have to work for them. And like, and I'm kind of sounding like a sales like a sales mantra right now, but um it's true. It's if dieting and gardening were easy, then this would be a strange place in hindsight. um and I know there's a lot of, and that's the other thing too, is there's between AI, Google, the internet, whatever, there's just a lot of resources out here for to better yourself. Um, and we can get into like the bias of the writer and all that, but like whatever, like if anything, to your maybe to your point from earlier, then read multiple articles, get different angles on things, you know. And like, I don't want to turn this into, without getting into like the political part of it. It's just, do the research. We have the resources to better ourselves, and yet we choose not to sometimes. Because that's the easy part. We should be using the internet to be bettering ourselves and to be better human beings in service to others. But instead, we choose to use this device to argue with people about, you know, the theme of 28 years later, the or our opinions on the Kardashian, whatever, we need to be using our resources better to better ourselves. I guess is kind of the point of this long-winded rant that I've kind of gone on. So, um, but there's always things that we can do, and we have the resources. We just need to take advantage of them and use them in smart ways.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think the consumerist the consumerist revolution, really, with Amazon, with AI, with streaming, social media, that they really sell you on convenience. But there's give and take always with convenience. With social media, that causes a lot of anxiety for people or fear of missing out. The AI, people aren't learning anymore. The students are just using it to finish their assignments instead of learning kind of like the main thing that they're supposed to learn about. Um, DoorDash, you can get food quickly anytime that you want. You can you can do a lot of these things. The most common thing is like, yeah, if it's easier, then it's not healthier. If it's more convenient, then it's probably not healthier. And I do wish we didn't have all of sirens, these sirens out on the cliffs trying to lure us in to, oh, but it makes life so much easier. Oh, it's so convenient to be able to do these things. And yeah, the more convenient things are, and if you get into the habit of doing those instead of cooking for yourself or getting off your phone, going into nature, or actually sitting down and learning what it is to make things, or things that have happened in history, or how to do math or whatever. So I think if we continue to move on that path, and it's what a lot of what these companies are trying to get you to do. And it's tough. It's tougher nowadays to be healthier. There's obviously a lot of companies that do things that are trying to make things healthier for you, and also with the same convenience of offering organic products or maybe processed products that have something good in them instead of just sugary garbage. But I think there's always going to be those temptations in any era, any facet of life, and the temptations that can kind of try to lure you away. And I have done pretty well at keeping away from some of these temptations. I don't really use social media that much anymore. I do use ChatGPT to help me figure things out, or um, kind of help with learning in that essence. Um, but yeah, I think there's a healthy balance, a healthy relationship when it comes to things that are convenient. But yeah, it shouldn't pull you away from what you're actually trying to accomplish. If you are trying to accomplish having a good diet, well, to be able to do that, you're going to have to go to the grocery store and maybe get a cookbook or learn more about how to be able to cook and prepare these meals for yourself, or meal prepping, or some of these other things. So that's going to take some of your time. To be able to go to the gym, that's probably going to take, depending on how often you want to go, 4 or 5 hours a week out of your time. That was probably spent doing things that were unproductive but were easier. And sometimes you do have to plan out what you want to do that day. But other times you have to look back and realize, I did have a stressful day at work. I did manage to get some of these things done, regardless of that fact. But I'm not going to be able to get everything done, and that's okay. I can move that towards tomorrow. I can move that towards this weekend or what have you. So I think, at least for me, being a perfectionist and being stubborn, sometimes it's hard to do those things because I am pretty self-critical of myself. I do want to do well. I do want to be better than I am currently, but it's kind of like that fear of not exactly failure, the fear of falling off again, and kind of like the fear of what I'm going to have to deal with next, what's coming down the pipe. And um, yeah, I've worked away from that. I've been working away from that, but at the end of the day, it's just making small improvements, small efforts that compound. The interest compounds, and when you're looking at things like, yeah, I can take on more, so I will take on more at this point. Trying to do everything all at once with different, like New Year's resolutions, or maybe one day you have one of those crises and you feel like you got to get back and you got to do this, and you're just trying to jump in and take on as much as you can at once, and you eventually burn out. And that's not a good way of doing things. Not being able to manage stress and eventually get burnt out in that way. So there's like the small things to do every day to look at and identify. There's the kind of larger, higher level goals that you may have, but you have to have patience in being able to do it. You won't shed 20 pounds overnight. You won't be able to put up 40 pounds more on the bench press or be able to run 10 miles overnight. So you got to look at and you got to plan for it. And if setting goals to run a marathon and that's what motivates you, then great. Or setting goals to get below a certain weight, say before a wedding or some other event, then great. But not only those goals that to keep in mind, but also developing that identity to say, this is who I want to be. Not because I think it's what I should do because it's what other people are doing, but I want to do it because I want to be healthier. I want to be around longer, um, for the people around me. Or if I want to be a better friend or sibling, son, or those things, because I feel like that's something that I can improve on, or better communication, or whatever. Go down the list, go down the line, but it's up to you to kind of put these things under priority and work to be able to do it. It's the same thing at work with these projects. They take steps, it takes time, takes communication. Same thing with gardening, same thing with going to the gym, and same thing with breaking bad habits or developing good ones.
Yeah, exactly. And you should be, at the end of the day, you should be doing everything for yourself. You should be, because if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of other people or your garden or other things? Self love is a real thing. And I think taking care of yourself and knowing when to set up boundaries and to give yourself grace and give other people grace are very important characteristics that we kind of take for granted. Um, so yeah, I lost weight for my wedding 6 years ago, and then it wasn't for the right reason necessarily. I did keto because I was going to be able to lose, in my opinion, the fastest weight in the shortest amount of time. It took me. I set a goal from August, my wedding, or I set a goal of in August of 2018 that I was going to spend a year losing weight, in because my wedding was September 1st, 2019, and I lost 120 pounds in that year stretch. But I didn't. The pandemic happened, so that's one excuse. I'm not gonna keep making that, but I didn't. It wasn't really a long term, like healthy choice that I was making, and I've gained all of my weight back since. So I beat myself up a lot, but I learned from my mistake. Um, doing a caloric deficit. So I'm getting back to a healthier mind, or a healthy body, healthy mind, and just overall a happier mindset. And like My wife went on a vacation that I didn't want to go on. I just didn't think that we had the money for it. She worked hard and she was able to do that. That was her reward for completing all of, putting up with other people at her restaurant. It was for, you know, just to reset the mind. Um, but she's doing that because that's how she views that. I wasn't going to go on it because there's also unsavory people who I don't particularly care for at this moment, and I didn't want to go on that. So I set up the boundary. I made a decision. It was a hard one. I made it, but here we are. Um, Sometimes the right choices aren't the easiest ones. So you're you're going to know for yourself what that choice is going to be and the path that you need to take. For me now, 3 days or 2 days of sitting on the couch eating chips, not the path. It was a step on our journey, and I'm moving forward with going to the gym tomorrow after work. Um, One, I get to avoid traffic, which is cool, but three, or in addition to that, I'm going to make an attempt to hit some of the weights and not just go there and sit at a TV for an hour and a half on a treadmill. So, small, measurable goals, but we're building. Um, I had a setback, but we're moving forward. We're marching forward. Hands up, and we're gonna strike the target.
Yeah, I think still too with people that compare and deal with that. Like, they never totally know the full story, and I think there's definitely people out there that do things that are beneficial, but they're only doing it for unhealthy reasons. So if you can marry doing good things for yourself for healthy reasons, that's kind of where at least I want to be at. And yeah, the whole idea of starting off small and thinking small to start with is that it won't take up so much of your time. It won't take up so much of your energy. So if you have something that should be a small stressor in your life, it's not going to keep you from staying on that path. So if you continue to build, because sometimes it'll be, if you start off, say, going to the gym and you're only going once a week and you make it up to 3 or 4 times a week, and something happens that makes it so that you can't go as often, then maybe you fall back to like maybe only 2 times a week and then you ramp that back up. So it's not only about, kind of the patience that you have with it, but it's really, I think, just the persistence to continue doing it long enough that it's harder for you to fall out of it. Whereas I've had falling out and not being able to get back on before, and I feel like that might be one of the fears I have before I restart again. But this time I'm starting from a healthier mindset, thinking I've been out of it for a long time, and I'm doing it for me, so I can become healthier, so I don't have to worry so much later on in life about my overall, say, flexibility or well-being to um, be able to do certain things. And in that sense, like, I am looking towards the future, and I'm not so worried about what's going on tomorrow. So I do have my little Larry David pocketbook that I'll be writing in and planning out what I want to accomplish tomorrow, and I'll see how far I get into it. And if there's things that I wasn't able to get done, then I'll put them on the docket to get done the next day or over the weekend or something else. But that's kind of the habit, and just doing it without any judgment. I plan on doing these things and I'll see what I can check off. And then you got to adapt, because you can make plans as much as you want, but you're never going to know all the different variables that are going to come with it, what you're going to have to be dealing with. So with starting small, I feel like you can develop that good base and continue doing it after a few months of steadily increasing frequency.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%. Baby steps. Talked about it. Continue to talk about it. It You're never going to have that giant leap like in content creation. It's always, sometimes you're looking for that moment to go viral, so you get like all these additional likes and traffic to your page and all of this, but it's steady growth, you know. Um, and that goes for SEO for all my data nerds out there. It's always about steady traffic, steady moving the needle up. You're gonna hit a dip in like your traffic, your AOV, but you figure it out and you just keep going steady and steady and steady. Um, just keeping that graph chart moving forward.
We are now a podcast for people dealing with SEO.
Hey, that's my business. That's what I've been working for like the last decade. So, hey, if we gotta hit all of our points, go outside of our demographic, that's what we gotta do, right? But uh, you know, steady growth, that's what we need. That's what every person needs, that's what every business needs. Organic can you know, non I don't know what the fuck the term is, just whatever. Just organic growth. Just keep going up. And that's the same thing with us in our everyday lives. We have relationships that we need to keep steady. We have a job that we have to show up for, and we have to wipe our ass every day and hop in a shower or whatever. We have to stay cleanliness. There's different variables throughout the day that are always going to throw you in a wrench. If I don't get in the shower on time, if my wife hits it before, then I'm probably going to be late to work. But you know what? That was on me because I slept in later than I should have. That happened to me a couple of nights ago, and I was late, 20 minutes to work. Luckily, we don't really we kind of have like a soft start time, so I just had to stay late. But I got bailed out in that situation, right? But um, all these extreme examples are kind of just to say we have one life to live, and make the at least for me, make the best of it. Love yourself so that you can love others. Like I'm learning to, and I've said this before, love myself to teach my son skills that he's going to need. And yeah, I mean, I could obviously I'm teaching him to fend for himself, but I also have to put the why behind things so that he understands. And it's difficult when it comes to emotions and things like that. He's The hardest thing that they say to teach toddlers is patience. I don't know patience, but I'm learning it because I'm going to have to teach him, because he'll sit and hover over like the TV until I hit the right thing, the right channel for him to watch. And it's like, or if I'm like trying to open a toy for him, he's getting all impatient. So I'm learning to deal with that, like teaching myself patience as well. And I have to give myself the grace that I don't always know it, but I'm doing my best effort to complete that task or to teach my son new skills, you know? And knowing that I'm doing the best job that I can do, giving myself enough grace is all that I kind of need to feel good about it and just keep moving forward.
Definitely. Uh, yeah, I mean it's different for everybody. It's different for what you want to accomplish. It's different for the different stressors that you're going to have. And I know it's not one size fits all. People have a lot more that they have to deal with than I do. And yeah, so it's kind of like just the gratefulness I feel for having the opportunity to get better. That I might not like exactly where I'm at right now, but I have my health, I have some financial stability, and there's more that I can do. So I just got to get a little bit more structured and how I want to accomplish that and how I want to do it. So, I mean, I set a goal for the next week. So before we meet again, I'll have, kind of my daily and my weekly goals that I've set, and also, putting down what I did accomplish. What did I not exactly put on my list for the day that I went out and did? So that's kind of where I'm going to hold myself accountable. So I don't want to have to come back here and tell everyone that I failed at a lot of that. But yeah, just try to do it, starting off without any judgment.
Yeah. It's the saying, you have to eat a shit sandwich sometimes, and learn to like it. Maybe a bit extreme for this conversation, but sometimes things aren't going to also work out how it was the plan, but your ability to adjust on the fly too is also going to be an important kind of trait, because there are times where I'll plan out for my wife and I go to a date night. Well, we'll keep it simple. And, I'll plan it out. We usually plan it out 2 weeks in advance because that's the only real time is like every other weekend. But there's times where it's like my wife has to take like a catering or a baking order and like we just can't go on it. I mean, even now I'm still kind of annoyed when that happens because it's like just tell them whatever. Like it's either you're going on an important trip and you can't miss it, and like you can't do it, or just be like, hey, sorry, kind of backed up, whatever. Lie, tell them the truth, whatever. Um, but we ended up going like the next night. I think we planned for Friday, went on Saturday. Like 2025, Brian is okay with us missing something by like a day. 2024, Brian would probably flipped out and started drinking. But so we have to measure our growth in that way too. Um, is that it's a good positive reinforcement for ourselves, um, to know how far we've come. Um, yeah, I mean, there's still an incredible gap of things that we could be doing more, but that's why we space it out. And whether it's a week, a day, we write down what we want to accomplish in that time period. We might have to push things back, but it's all about being flexible. And I think that's the biggest growth of Brian 2025 is somewhat more patient, or maybe just going with the punches better, you know, weaving and bobbing, or when I should have been bobbing and weaving, that type of thing. So, um, take life with the punches, we only get one of these things, but don't fill it with positive intentions, but actually do with actionable goals.
Yeah. I mean, it might be a good idea for an app just to have something put together that when you do write these things out or you start to label them, things that you want to accomplish, or maybe feelings that you have about yourself throughout the day that are, more negative than they should be, more positive, or something that can help you track. Because I know, um, at least for me, when I was doing the app and trying to get 10,000 steps a day, it was a good way to keep myself accountable because I wanted to see that bar over the 10,000 like line each day. So maybe it would be helpful for some way to develop an algorithm that people can kind of rank their priorities and what they're accomplishing, and also, kind of what they're folding in, and can give them some sort of direction for, well, I see you want a diet. Let's start with this small thing, and then we'll, see how you feel about working something else in there. And it can give you sort of a graph or kind of that positive reinforcement to say, well, you've come a long way. Um, you haven't, you might have fallen off or something, but maybe let's try to start, somewhere near the middle again. Um, but that's probably I don't know. There's something to it. I got to think about it a little bit more, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's it's up to you to think about and determine. And at least for me, that's been the biggest thing. Am I doing this thing for me? Do I want to do this for me? Am I doing this for other people, or am I just doing this for to get validation from other people? And I think that's really where the motivation kind of lives and dies at. Um, the sometimes the basis isn't doesn't start off with doing something small, but understanding why you want to do something. And if you can figure out your why, figure out that specific why, then I think you're more often than not able to continue on with it. But sometimes we just need reminders, and sometimes stuff happens, and um, once that's done and over with, that you can continue on that upward trajectory.
Yeah. Again, it's just taking the time to kind of fully understand the situation you're in, whatever the case is, and just knowing that you're doing the best of intentions, the best of what's best for maybe not necessarily everyone, but especially yourself, which is which is a hard thing. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and prop out that I didn't go on a vacation. Like, that sounds ridiculous, just kind of saying out loud. But I knew that I just wouldn't have a good time. Um, there's just some kind of explosive personalities that I would have went on vacation with, and all that. And my wife didn't wasn't in love with the fact that I didn't go, but I think she understands that I was kind of just doing it for myself and my sanity, because I know that I have a tendency to respond to things in negative ways. So I just, did it, kind of got to live with it, move forward. And I think that's maybe part of the reason why I was sitting on the couch for a couple of days. Maybe I was depressed and still haven't fully processed that whole thing. But, um, I'm here now talking about it on this podcast. So doing something about it, talking to my good friend here, and you know I'm figuring it out, but I know that I'm doing that inch by inch, that inches all around, inches that we need are all around us. We just have to be able to find them. And I'm moving up by an inch today.
Yeah. Some days it's some days it's more, some days it's less. But yeah, I think it's good to have that presence of mind to think about these things. And yeah, I mean, some of these thoughts, some of these actions might not be popular with everyone, but at the end of the day, I keep saying at the end of the day a lot, but at the conclusion of the evening,
There you
it's
go.
it's that balance that you have to find. Is it really going to be a vacation if you're not going to enjoy yourself? And I think that's a question that it's a good question to ask.
Yeah. um I just, knowing what I know now, I mean, I obviously they're having a great time. They saw an alligator today. They saw, and like, they went to the beach, and my son got a bunch of new stuffed animals, and he's in love with it. So I think it's one of those rare occurrences where, like, it's a weird situation to be in, but I think it would just worked out the best for everyone. Um, which is a rare occasion. But I think that's kind of just an example of I knowing that I did the best for myself, and I guess having the reward almost that my wife and son are having an amazing time. So, um, you know, again, hard decisions are not always the easiest, but that's why we rely on building a strong foundation to where it doesn't hurt so much.
Right. Kind of nailed it with that one. And I think we're at an hour. So
Yeah.
I'm good. Any last thoughts?
No. Stay beautiful, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Alrighty. Now, if you're after credits trailer or scene, no, I'm just kidding. Goodbye.